Tonight, major shakeups in the White House. Trump's tariffs hit a legal wall, and Elon Musk walks away. What the setbacks mean for the president's agenda and your wallet. Trump tells Netanyahu to stand down, why the U.S. president is urging Israel to hold off on striking Iran, as nuclear talks hang in the balance. He's a senator, a minister, and a man of faith. James Langford tells CBN why real change starts with each of us, not just Washington.
Biblical leadership, as simple as it is seeing the problem that God puts on your heart and doing something about it.
And from bank fraud to deepfakes, cybercrime is exploding with the help of AI.
Recently, my grandpa just got scammed out of his whole life savings.
We'll show you how it works and how to protect yourself. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. The White House facing growing pressure at home and abroad. Good evening in Washington. I'm Jenna Browder. More challenges for President Trump, from legal blows to Elon Musk's high-profile exit and growing tensions with Israel over a potential strike on Iran. Here to break it all down, CBN News chief political analyst David Brody and Dr. Jeff Heyman, professor of economics and dean of Cedarville University's School of Business. Gentlemen, welcome. Let's start with that federal ruling. Judges say President Trump's he overstepped his authority by imposing sweeping tariffs without approval from Congress. David, to you first. From a political standpoint, how damaging is this legally and optically for the president as he tries to keep his America First trade agenda alive?
There's no doubt it hurts him politically. And when I say politically, I guess from a political PR standpoint, but really it's more about executing his agenda. This has been the big problem and really one of the big narratives of the Trump, not just first 100 days, but now going into 200 days with these rogue federal judges basically saying, no, not on our watch type of situation. And because of that, he's going to have a real problem down the road. You know, he talked about making America great again, but there was never anything after that that said, if the judges allow me to, and that's been the big problem. So yeah, it's going to be a problem carrying out the agenda. A lot of this is going to go to the U.S. Supreme Court, Jenna.
The Wall Street Journal had this headline today: tariff ruling is a setback for Trump, but doesn't end trade war. Jeff, economically, what does this ruling mean for the cost of things and fears that some people have that goods could eventually cost a lot more?
For sure. Tariffs are a tax, so of course that would increase the prices that consumers would pay. Initially, we haven't seen much of the tariff increases. The manufacturers and the firms that sell those have been most loath to increase prices until they figure out what's going to be the end result. But this ruling, if it's held in effect, will mean that we won't see many of those price increases in the future, in the coming months.
All right, guys, let's shift gears. Elon Musk, he is leaving the administration. He made the announcement right after he called Trump's big, beautiful bill disappointing. He did tweet this: as my scheduled time as a special government employee comes to an end, I would like to thank President Trump for the opportunity to reduce wasteful spending. The DOGE mission will only strengthen over time as it becomes a way of life throughout the government. David, your reaction and how significant is this?
Well, a couple of things. In terms of significant, look, the Geek Squad, if you will still be there. So the DOGE team will still be there. But look, I'm not a rocket scientist. But the last time I checked in Washington, it is important that people hold on to power and make sure that they take care of what is territorially theirs. And so what I mean by that is that here's the truth. Elon Musk and cabinet secretaries were in a tussle, you can call it more than that, over domain. And what I mean by domain is to how much was Elon Musk supposed to do and how much are those cabinet secretaries supposed to do. And Elon Musk is a free thinker. He's a guy that, have you heard, likes to go on X from time to time, a platform that he owns. And he basically starts saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And cabinet secretaries are like, wait a minute, hold on. I mean, we're the cabinet secretaries. We'll sign off on that. So there was a skirmish inside of the White House and Washington writ large, and I think that accelerated the timeline. Would Elon Musk have eventually left? Yes. Could he have been renewed for another 90 days, 180 days? Sure. But I think some of that skirmish that I'm talking about basically accelerated the timeline, Jenna.
David, would you say that he and Donald Trump are still on good terms?
Yeah, I think overall they are. Though I will say that criticizing, and that's exactly what he did, Jen, as you mentioned, criticizing the one big beautiful bill obviously is not going to do him any favors with President Trump. But this is what Elon Musk is all about. He is a free thinker. He's a guy that just goes ahead and says what he means and means what he says, which is obviously a positive trait, but sometimes he can get you into political trouble.
Jeff, it's not just Elon Musk. There are a lot of people disappointed that this bill really does very little to rein in spending. But Jeff, if lawmakers are really unwilling to touch the big ticket items, Social Security, Medicare, et cetera, are all of these smaller scale DOGE type cuts all for naught?
We can't call them all for naught, but they're not going to seriously address the problem. I mean, when Mr. Trump made basically the entitlement programs off limits, that meant that we wouldn't have any serious effect at really handling the debt issue, because most of the debt growth is coming from those entitlements. And so until we get the political will across the country, and there's none in either party right now to touch those, we're going to continue to have this situation. We couldn't even get, for instance, what's come out in the House. We don't know what the Senate's going to do yet. We could not get them to fully repudiate the Inflation Reduction Act spending of Mr. Biden. So I think there's a big hill up ahead, and we're already seeing long-term interest rates stay much higher. And just to put another damper on this, the CBO's budget estimates are assuming much lower interest rates than we have currently, and it's hard to see those coming down with us running $2 trillion deficits every year.
Right. Guys, while I still have you here, I do want to ask you about Iran. President Trump, he's telling Prime Minister Netanyahu to stand down on striking Iran. David, how do you read this, and do you think President Trump is cooling some on Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, look, I think ultimately it's a philosophical difference, right? I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu would be considered kind of a neocon, if you will, especially when it comes to Iran. And Donald Trump wants to, as John Lennon would say, give peace a chance. And you have two fundamentally different views. Now, they all could mesh together if the Iran deal goes south, which it very well could. But at this point, you've got Netanyahu kind of chomping at the bit and Trump saying, slow your roll. And that's clearly part of the reason for the consternation between the two.
Yeah. While I have you here, too, any thoughts on the situation with Harvard, David? The Trump administration really not relenting in terms of federal funding for the institution.
No, they're itching for a fight, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just saying the Trump administration wants to see this go through the court system and go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court as it relates to, some of the legal contours of the fight. But they've done this with birthright citizenship and many other things. Donald Trump and his administration pushing the envelope should be nothing new to us, Jenna, because that's what it's all about. Look, Donald Trump has lived more than half his life in court, so this should not surprise us.
Jeff, a final thought. You yourself are at Cedarville University. Your thoughts on what the administration is doing with universities that it's not happy with?
Yeah, it's an understandable dilemma. I understand why he might have this animosity towards what Harvard has been doing, and many of us share that. But the real risk for us, of course, is what would a future Democratic president do to, say, a Christian university? So we need to be aware of those second-order effects when we start down these policy paths.
Okay, David Brody, Jeff Hammond, thank you both so much.
Thanks, Jim.
Well, while the politics and policy battles play out in Washington, the big question for most Americans at home is, how does this affect my wallet? For more on that, let's bring in Mark Hamrick, Washington Bureau Chief and Senior Economic Analyst for Bankrate.com. Mark, welcome. Good to see you. So Americans have seen this on-again, off-again tariff policy for months now. If these tariffs do stay blocked, could Americans see lower prices on imported goods, or is that really unlikely to trickle down to consumers?
Good to be with you, Jenna. And of course, that's a big assumption that is implied in the question. We don't know what the future of all this is. And we're not talking about the totality of all the tariffs that have been imposed. This recent ruling does not affect, for example, the tariffs imposed on steel, aluminum, automobiles. Those are significant products coming into the United States. But let's think about something we've discussed many times, and that is that inflation was the primary economic issue in the presidential campaign. The president promised to bring down prices, and we know that tariffs run really two risks. One is to raise prices, and the other is to slow the economy. So if a big portion of this pie of tariffs is removed, then we wouldn't presumably have as much in the way of inflation coming down the pipeline, but I'm not quite willing to make that bet just yet.
So, Mark, if I'm, a consumer at home watching this, what should I do right now? Any smart moves to protect my wallet in the weeks ahead?
I think the main thing that we've been counseling consumers to do is number one, be very cautious about this idea of trying to buy ahead of tariffs. For example, trying to buy an iPhone. Like I had a member of my extended family reach out to me in the last week or so and say, "Oh, do I need to buy an iPhone?" I was just like, let's just settle down here a little bit. We don't know how this policy is going to play out. Carriers subsidize the prices of iPhones, and I'd rather not have people sort of all of a sudden be spending more on things, anticipating higher costs when the future of those costs remain in question. What I'd much rather prefer is that people prioritize their savings so that they don't have to go into debt in the future for the purchases that they both need and want.
Consumer confidence, Mark, is ticking up. That said, should families trust that, or is it still a time to kind of tighten the belt and play it safe? You're talking about savings and focusing on that.
Right. Most Americans are undersaved, and so we did have a rebound in consumer confidence after hitting lows that were largely about the tariffs. Americans are still downbeat on the outlook for inflation, meaning that they still see inflation going higher than where it's been recently. That is part of the consumer confidence survey. And they're also downbeat on the outlook for employment. Are they right? I don't know. I don't know what the future brings for the performance of the economy. But what I would say is, consistent with my earlier comment, the best way to ensure against the future is to keep, for example, if you're working, your job contacts active, to keep your skills in prime shape, and to continue to achieve your financial goals that should include paying down debt, saving for retirement, and of course, saving for emergencies.
Okay, Mark Hamrick with Bankrate. Always nice to see you. Thank you, Mark. Up next, immigration, debt, and division. Senator Lankford says biblical leadership is the answer to our country's biggest challenges. His message for Americans. Senator James Lankford is a rising leader who makes clear that his faith is his guide, especially when tackling tough policies like immigration and the national debt. After serving more than a decade in Congress, the ordained minister sat down with CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London to talk about his new book and explain why now is the critical time for Americans to do their part.
Whether on Capitol Hill or among his constituents, Senator Lankford displays a genuine passion for serving others. He spent years pastoring youth and representing communities throughout his home state of Oklahoma. In his new book, Turn Around America's Revival, Lankford emphasizes that the sooner we discover our purpose, the greater our impact will be.
Biblical leadership, as simple as it is seeing the problem that God puts on your heart and doing something about it.
Senator Lankford sees his debut book as a practical guide for Christians to boldly live their faith as leaders, even in hard times.
It's intended for us as people of faith to be able to slow down and go, okay, what is it? How do I understand how the scripture applies to me? What is it that I can actually do to have the greatest impact?
Lankford invites readers to see how transforming a nation requires more than just casting a vote. Each chapter offers practical insights on leading by example in our everyday lives. In it, he lays out how to maintain unwavering faith while navigating a divided political climate, what Scripture teaches us about engaging with government and authority. It also emphasizes how courage, kindness, and consistency can effectively influence and reshape our environment.
So I try to lay out, what can you do in your school board, your communities, city councils? What can you do for mentoring the kid down the street that just needs some help in that family? There's a lot of ways we can be engaged in our country, but the first thing is to acknowledge there's a problem.
Senator, why were you inspired to release Turnaround during such a critical time?
Well, I would say for me, I have to be confident this is God's timing, because this has been a 3-year journey to be able to write it and to be able to prepare it and to be able to lay it out there. It is also a moment to be able to challenge people, to be able to say, don't expect that there was an election maybe you liked and say, okay, everything's going to get fixed now.
turnaround is already receiving praise in Washington. Former Secretary of State, CIA Director, and Kansas Congressman Mike Pompeo describes it as a powerful challenge to pay closer attention to who we are rather than what we do.
There's a big difference between a career and a calling. Career is what we do to get paid. A calling is what we were made for. And people are missing that. And so I wanted to be able to challenge people to say, well, let's reconsider again as Americans who we are. My hope is people would have a pen in their hand as they go through, and that they would hear God's call in their own life to be able to know what their mission is as well in the days ahead.
Michelle London, CBN News, Washington.
Thank you, London. And coming up, from fake videos to phony calls, AI is supercharging cybercrime. How you can protect yourself. It looks real, it sounds real, but it's a lie built by artificial intelligence. Experts warn cybercriminals are using AI to exploit people in ways we haven't seen before. From deep fake videos to fake emergency calls, it's getting harder to tell what's real and what's not. Dale Hurd shows us how this new technology is being used to commit crimes and how you can fight back.
More and more people are getting scammed online.
Recently, my grandpa just got scammed out of like his whole life savings.
Just last week, I spoke to somebody who invested, really got scammed.
My wife got victimized in an internet fraud.
AI-enabled crimes are up 456% since last year. Email phishing attacks, identity theft, ransomware attacks, financial scams, and deepfake child pornography are all becoming more sophisticated and prevalent. Artificial intelligence has become the tool of choice for online criminals because it is erasing the line between the real and the fake. Google's newly announced video generator is about to flood the internet with AI-created clips that have the look of expensive films.
None of us is real. We're here because someone decided to write a prompt. We all hate him for it.
AI can take this. Artificial intelligence will supercharge online criminal activity and turn it into this deepfake of me saying whatever someone programs my image to say, and it doesn't have to be true.
I've never seen anything move faster in my lifetime than AI. Not the internet, not crypto, not anything else. And I mean, what we're doing is we're measuring this technology in days.
Former federal prosecutor Ari Redbord is the global head of policy at TRM Labs.
AI has removed the human bottleneck from scams, from cybercrime, and from other types of, illicit activity.
America's adversaries are said to be using AI to influence U.S. politics and to steal.
We've seen North Korea, they just stole $1.5 billion in one day to use for weapons proliferation and other destabilizing activity.
Every major American adversary is experimenting with AI.
Leah Siskin is an AI expert at the Foundation for Defensive Democracies.
At the start, the outbreak of the war between Ukraine and Russia was Russia creating deepfakes of Ukrainian President Zelensky surrendering.
It's not very hard to tell that this is a deepfake because at times the voice and facial movements seem unnatural. However, online criminals are already working to fix these kinds of imperfections, says cybersecurity expert Neil O'Farrell.
So if you're looking for those as a way to tell the difference between deepfake and real, you're probably setting a trap for yourself because the bad guys know those are the giveaways. So they're working very, very hard on fixing those telltales.
How can you protect yourself from these scammers? O'Farrell says if you receive a call from a friend or family member claiming to be in trouble and requesting money or personal information, you need to ask questions.
Where are you? What jurisdiction are you in? Could I speak to an arresting officer? Could you hold the phone up, turn on the video, and let me see? I want you, like proof of life. Show me that it is you, and you are where you say you are.
Or choose a unique family code word that's not been sent through the internet, and ask a friend or family member to say it.
Dad, I got into some trouble and I need some money. I need you to go buy a $100 Visa gift card and read me the numbers on the back.
Sure. What's the password? Armani?
I'm not continuing this conversation until you give me the code word.
What worries experts is how artificial intelligence learns, and that AI crime is headed toward what's called its mature phase.
So that's when, AI really completely removes the human bottleneck and is essentially doing the scam activity, doing the cyber attacks in a completely automated way.
Former Google CEO Eric Schmidt recently issued an ominous warning about AI accelerating toward artificial superintelligence.
This foundation is being locked in, and we're not going to stop it. Because remember, the computers are now doing self-improvement. They're learning how to plan, and they don't have to listen to us anymore. And this is the theory that there will be computers that are smarter than the sum of humans.
That means law enforcement and governments will need to utilize AI tools now to fight this crime wave, which experts say could quickly become an epidemic. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thank you, Dale. And still ahead, spreading the joy of the Lord through beatboxing. All right, finally tonight, 2 Brazilian nuns are going viral for sharing their unique talent with the world. Take a look. Sisters Marizela Cassiano and Marissa De Paula appeared on Catholic television show called Familia de Amor. The two were talking about leading a vocational retreat when they surprised the audience with a spontaneous musical performance, including beatboxing and dancing.
Vocação, oh, vocação, oh, vocação, oh.
And the sisters say music has been a powerful tool to help them reach young people and those in need by sharing the joy of the Lord with them. And they certainly exude the joy of the Lord. That's amazing to see. They're really talented. All right, that's going to do it for Faith Nation this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great evening.